Hello everyone, how's it going? Dr. Incompetent here, and I'd like to do a review of Disco Elysium, shall we? So, Disco Elysium is a game that I have played a ton on the channel. I have over 30 hours in this game, and it is a sensational point-and-click adventure detective experience, and yet it's also a game that I had to stop playing because I was so affected by it. And I've recently resumed playing it, and I thought, you know what, let me get down my thoughts for Disco Elysium and give it a review. So in this review, I'm going to grade the game, giving it a letter grade, and then in the second portion of the review, I'm going to recommend whether or not I think you should buy and play Disco Elysium. So Disco Elysium is described on the Steam page as a groundbreaking role-playing game. You're a detective with a unique skill system at your disposal and a whole city to carve your path across. Interrogate unforgettable characters, crack murders or take bribes, become a hero or an absolute disaster of a human being. And the story tags are RPG, story-rich, choices matter, detective. So I think that's a pretty good start, but Disco Elysium isn't really an RPG in the sense that you are getting into fights and, grinding up levels like a traditional, Dragon Warrior or even like a Baldur's Gate style RPG. It has RPG elements in that you do get experience points, you do level up, you do get equipment, but for the most part, everything is done with skill checks and dice rolling, and it feels, at least to me, to be more appropriately akin to a point-and-click adventure game and a detective game in that space. There's plenty of good detective games in that space, and this is right up there with it. You're trying to solve a mystery and, several crimes, many of which you perhaps have committed yourself, and figure out what's going on in this world. But I think, if you're going to talk about Disco Elysium, what you need to say in terms of what kind of a game it is that it is a story-rich experience. It's a work of art. This is a completely crafted world that has its own lore and story to a level of depth, detail, and intricacy that is just so well done from top to bottom that it is an experience you have to play. And it is voice acted superbly. I'm playing the Final Cut version, by the way, which even adds more voice acting than the original did, and perhaps some other changes. So if you go into it like thinking it's going to be a traditional RPG, it's not really that at all. And it's also a little bit more RPG than a point-and-click adventure like, say, Fate of Atlantis or Day of the Tentacle or something like that. But it has both of them put together into a narrative game where you're talking to people, you have long conversations, there are dialogue trees and extra lore that just unfolds and unfolds and unfolds. And it is sort of a unique game in that sense, but that's kind of the feel of what type of a game it is. So the first thing I do when I perform a review is I evaluate whether or not the game is fun. So is Disco Elysium fun? And that's a tricky one because it's not fun in the sense that the subject matter is fun, because this is not going to be a game where you're just thrilled to be this character, this hero, and be in this world. It is a downtrodden area that's been devastated by war and poverty and politics. It is ridden with crime, and your character himself is incredibly fallen from grace, and because of that, there's just this overwhelming gloom and dread and, just helplessness and hopelessness that pervades the game. And yet, there are moments in the game where you laugh out loud, where it's funny. It makes you feel on an emotional range that is just about unparalleled in gaming. It's very rare that you get such a deep well of emotions in a game that are all over the place, that, haunt you, that leave you thinking about the game, And so it's not a game that's like, oh, this is so much fun, I'm having a blast. It's like, I can't take my eyes away from this. I'm so immersed in this. This is amazing, but I'm not like necessarily smiling. Sometimes I can't look at the screen. Sometimes I'm grimacing, but it's an experience that is worth going through. And in the long run, you tell people, oh my goodness, you've really got to check this out. It's just something else. In the same way that you might for, just like a movie that is scary or horrible or just completely a downer, like Hamlet. You don't tell people, oh, wow, you should go read Hamlet because it's so much fun. It's a tragedy, right? But it's definitely worth experiencing, seeing performed, or reading because it's a masterpiece. Same thing. This is like just a tragedy that has faint glimmers of humanity and hope that keep you going, and it's not smile all the time, but it's an experience that I recommend and I think is amazing. So then, after we get through the fun factor, we talk about the controls in Disco Elysium. How does this game control, given what it's asking you to do? It controls interestingly. I call it a point-and-click adventure, but you actually can move with WASD. You can click to move, or you can actually just walk around. You can highlight the interactive objects on the screen. And as far as the controls go, I think it does just fine. I really don't encounter too many issues with interfacing with the game. You can clearly see what you can interact with. There are some small issues that I have with inventory management that we'll talk about in systems and stuff, but for the most part, the game controls just fine. It doesn't test you on your skill and your reflex of control. The test is in choices that you make and dice rolls that you make and observations and connections that you make, not on, how quickly you can push the buttons. Then, what about a subset of control, which are the systems and the UI? How do these work in Disco Elysium? So the systems are kind of like all of the little things in the game, the mini games, the intricacies of, for example, in this game, you've got RPG systems, you've got dialogue tree systems, you've got inventory management, you've got exploration, you have skill checks. How do these things work? Overall, the dialogue stuff works great. The controlling of the character and exploring works just fine. The time system is a little bit not my favorite just because I don't like being on the clock, but it makes sense for the game, so it's not a detractor, it's just there. And the leveling system is a bit abstract, but it makes sense in a game like this that it's going to be abstract. It's hard to tell necessarily what the right thing to do is with your gear or with your thoughts that you're keeping, or even how you want to level your character, but it's a really interesting element of the game because you can play it different ways. So you can play Harry to be a brawler who's really strong and who takes care of things physically, or you can play them to be more creative or more empathetic or more intellectual. So you can kind of run through the game in different ways with different builds based on what you want to do with your character, which is an awesome part of the game. The inventory management is something I think that could be improved. It's not the end of the world, but it would be nice if you could easily sort your items based on what pluses that you're looking for to make the skill checks. If you could just, say, I want to focus on empathy, and then just either sort your items by empathy bonuses or just equip the best empathy gear that you have or something like that. But that's a minor quibble, truthfully. And overall, I think the systems in the game work well, but the RPG leveling stuff is going to throw people, I think. And one of the things that I don't necessarily care for are dice rolling that you can't undo. It seems so weird that you just miss out on an ability to do something and it can be permanent, but that's the game, and you just have to accept that. You have to understand about white skill checks and then permanent red checks that you can't re-roll, when to take chances, when not to take chances, how to use leveling up to be able to redo white checks and go back, optimizing your potential to succeed. And it can be really frustrating when you fail something that you had a great disposition for, but that's the game. That's just the nature of it. So if you accept that and accept the randomness, it's just Disco Elysium, and that is it. So it isn't necessarily the best, element of the game, which is the random skill checks, but I don't know how they could really do it differently if they want to have dice rolling in it and want to have the consequences be meaningful. So it's fine. I'll give it a pass. So what about the UI in Disco Elysium? The UI is really good, and what I like about the UI is it's transparent. You can explore it. It keeps good track of all your quests. It tells you the dice rolls that you need for those quests. It locates them, I believe, on the map, or gives you an indication of the timing and the location of them. So you have a full record of everything, because there is so much that happens in the game as you go that you might forget. Additionally, I like the artwork for all of the items that you can pick up, and you can toggle between your tools, your clothing, your items, and things like that pretty easily. You can see what level you're at, what bonuses you have, where your character is at, get lore reminders, and just generally find everything within the built-in UI by navigating the menus. So I think that this is a good part of the game, so no problems there. So now we move into the story. What about the story in Disco Elysium? And this is why you play the game. It is, for my money, one of the best written games that I've ever played. And I'm a literature major. I know good writing when I see it, I mean, for the most part. And this is amazing, phenomenal writing. I'm not saying it's all like the best ever, but overall, it's really, really top shelf stuff. The story is interesting. The characters are amazing. The setting is, engrossing. And as you get into the game, it just becomes an iconic and, not only just iconic, but it's like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Like when you're talking about, detective games, point-and-click adventure games, games that are well-written, this just goes right to the top of your lists. It's easily within the top 5 of some of these games when you're just talking about amazing writing. So the story is phenomenal. If you like story-driven games, this is it. I'm not saying it's the happiest story, and it's different depending on what choices you make, but the broad strokes perhaps are the same. But either way, just sensational story that keeps you playing the game. Just as an example, I'm not really super into the dice rolling myself, but because the game is so great in all other elements, I just kind of overlook that and just play because I want to see what the next dialogue is like or the next interaction is like. So what about the graphics in Disco Elysium? Again, the graphics are ridiculously good. And what I mean by ridiculously good is I don't mean like, these are like 4K blow you away photorealistic things. This is like a work of art. Disco Elysium has an incredible sense of style. You could see like the knife on the palette kind of smearing the paint onto the canvas to create some blocky yet very stylized art for the set pieces, for the characters, for the items. It's incredible. I think that the visuals in this game really, really are, again, very distinct, very interesting, and just coalesce with all the other elements, the story, the vibe, the audio, to create an immersive work of art. So actually, I just said the word audio, so let's move into how is the audio in this game. And again, the audio in this game is out of this world. The music sets the tone for this game so well. Even just the ambient tracks are incredible. The main melody for, Revachol and the central area is, hauntingly beautiful, and yet so melancholy. It's just unreal. It almost crushes your spirit just to hear it, and yet it's still, this kind of lingering nobility and beauty in the music of it. So I love the music in the game. It is amazing. And then that leads into another element of the audio, which is the voice acting. Bar none, some of the best voice acting you'll ever come across in gaming. The narrator, the voice, the whole story behind the person who does the narrator's voice, and this being their first real voice acting gig and everything. I mean, they just have this really distinct baritone that is absolutely top shelf. It's interesting in the delivery. It's atypical, and then even the characters that you meet, the accents, the delivery, it is unbelievable. I can just sit here. That's why the final cut is the version I would recommend if you're going to get it, because you get more voice acting for just about everything. Like, and it brings it all to life. Like, if you were just having to read this off the page, like an old school game, you could certainly do that and it would still be really good, but the voice acting just takes it to another level. So the audio is sensational. What about, how does all this stuff come together in terms of the game's style? Does Disco Elysium feel like it has a soul and is a unique artistic experience, or is it something where it's like, okay, they're just taking elements from other games and kind of patching them together and it's serviceable but feels hollow? That is not the case for this game. This is one of the most style-driven games that you're going to play. It is immediately identifiable. The narrator's voice, the main character, the art style, the music, the game itself, and Revachol. I mean, this is all just absolutely first-class stuff that gives it some of the, best style that you're ever going to see. This is, as far as I understand it, and this could be just apocryphal and, or I'm getting the details wrong, this game was made by an artistic community, like a group of writers, artists. People got together to produce and come up with this game, and I believe they've since disbanded since creating this game, but you can tell that this is a full team effort of an amazing set of minds that are super creative and interesting and weaving together all of their talents to make something that I don't know if you're ever going to see a game like this that fires on all cylinders like this again. I mean, I hope so, but this is just such a style-driven game. So overall, obviously you could tell I'm gushing about the game, but how do I evaluate Disco Elysium? What letter grade would I give it? So before I grade games, as I do reviews, I first kind of point to the Steam reviews and the Metacritic score to provide a baseline for the game. So on Steam, Disco Elysium has 84,000 very positive reviews as of its release in October of 2019. And on Metacritic, you're talking about a 89, and this is for the final cut. There's two different versions on Metacritic, the original release and then the final cut, which is 2021 for the release date. If we're looking at reviews on the different platforms, it's 89 on PS5, 92 on Xbox, 86 on Switch, and 97 on PC. And there's 739 user reviews for the PS5 version at an 8.3 for Disco Elysium Final Cut. I'm right there with the reviews, but I'm actually more towards the PC critic reviews of a 97. I give Disco Elysium an A+. This is a no-mistake masterpiece of a game. If I were to talk about games that transcend mere video games and move into the realm of art, this is certainly one of the games I would mention because of the story, the writing, the voice acting, the music, the visual style. Like, every element of this game coming together is ridiculous. Actually, what's funny is some of the gameplay choices and design choices are not necessarily my favorite, because I'm just a person who, I want to get the outcome that I want, and I don't like giving up control to the RNG gods. But at the same time, that's probably more realistic and makes it more of a game. So even given that tiny quibble, I still give this game an A+. It's just amazing. This is a game that I actually want to play again, as a different build, and go back through knowing what I know and see if I can make things happen differently, or what unfolds if you can handle situations faster or in a different order or in a different way. So I give this game, no hesitation, an A+. So this moves into my recommendation. Should you buy and play Disco Elysium? So if you are a person who likes well-written games, narrative games, if you like point-and-click adventure games, detective games, games that are, really, really creative and interesting, or RPGs even, yes, then I would recommend those. But honestly, this is a game that I can just recommend to everyone because I think it's an experience that pretty much anyone should try. It's just like the top shelf of what's capable of games. Like, what can games do when they do everything so well? This is, for me, one of those experiences. It is just such an interesting and well-crafted game on all levels that I think it is worth everyone trying. And so what about, the value of the game? So Disco Elysium, the final cut is $40, which is a steal for a game that you're going to get this much play out of. And it's currently on sale for a few more days anyway, 75% off. It goes on sale quite a bit, and it is a slam dunk. Like, you definitely want to get this game, and if you can get it on sale, even better. The value is ridiculous because if we talk about replayability, it actually has replayability. A lot of the times with story-driven games, there's not much replay because it's like you've done the story. But in this game, it has that choose-your-own-adventure, different outcome, different path element to it, so you could try a different build. You could try a different way of playing the main character. You could get different dice rolls. You could go a different way and make the game experience different if you're interested. So I think there is replayability. And like I said, overall, yes, I recommend this game. No hesitation. It's like one of those games. I haven't reviewed a ton of games on the channel, but you put it up there, with a game like Subnautica or something where you're just like, yes, just play this game. It's so good. It's such a good reminder that when games are done well, that they do, encapsulate an artistic experience and are so much fun. This is a different kind of fun, granted, but I give this my full recommendation and think everybody should try it. So, that's me talking about how much I like this game, and I'd love to know what you guys think of my review. Do you think I was, unfair or too high on the game? What are your impressions and takeaways of the game? Have you played it? Are you thinking about playing it? What would you grade Disco Elysium? I'd love to see what everyone's scores or grades for the game are in the comments below, so I can see where people are at with this. I will be finishing this game. I've already recorded a new video booting my series back up from the dead, and I've mustered the courage and the psychological fortitude to resume my adventures, and we're going to go and beat this game. Everyone, I hope you have found this review to be useful and entertaining. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.